We're talking about trade values for your Dynasty fantasy football rosters. And let's start with our first player. And Nate, we do agree on this player, what I could see, and that is Saquon Barkley. So his given cost currently is a late 24 first and a 2025 first. What do you think about this? Accurate, higher, lower? If different, what do you think it should be? And are you buying or selling at this cost? Nate, let's figure this out, man. What are we doing?
Yeah, 2 firsts, that's a little high for me for Saquon Barkley. I'm a little bit lower here.
Same.
And, it's not just because of the fact that he's older. I know he's 26. He's turning 27 before next season, but he's dealt with injuries. We've seen it throughout his career. He's struggled to stay consistently on the field. And the Giants offense has done him no compliments there either with how they have treated him with that offensive line over the past couple of years. And now he's on a 1-year deal, slightly better than the franchise tag. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I don't know where the Giants are headed. With Daniel Jones, they have him locked up, but they're going to have a high draft pick. There's a lot of unknown with this team, and I want to stay away from it and when I'm investing 2 picks. And, if Barkley goes somewhere else, that could be great, but still, the age does play a factor. He's going to be 27 going into next season. I'm only expecting another year or 2 out of this guy. He is a generational talent, so, he will be productive, I think, for another year or 2. But 2 firsts, I just can't do it. I'm thinking more like a first and a late first and a second is what I'd be paying for Barkley. If I'm a contending team, that's a late first and a late second.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right for you, Mike?
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I agree. The value is lower. Here's the thing. I also feel like it's accurate, but it shouldn't be, because this is what you pay for a running back like Saquon Barkley. If you want to get Saquon Barkley on your team, 2 firsts is what it takes. That doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with it. So I'm okay with losing out on a player like this. And we know what he could be. Is he going to, where does he go? We don't know right now. There's lots of question marks. There's places that could use him. The Dallas Cowboys could look to move on from Tony Pollard. I believe he's a free agent after the season as well.
Yeah.
You never know where he could end up. But that being said, I'm okay with the first and second. I completely agree with you there. Preferably if I could stagger them, 24 first and a 25 second. I try not to trade away too much from one draft class.
Yeah.
But, the thing is that there's players I'd rather roster that I think you could acquire cheaper, like Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara. Even Jahmyr Gibbs, I would try to make a run for if we're going to pay up.
Yeah, if we're gonna pay 2 first, I think Jahmyr Gibbs, someone you can start, inquiring about. Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor. I think those are guys I would rather go after and pay 2 firsts for than Saquon Barkley.
Didn't Achane get hurt again last weekend? I believe he re-injured. Is it the same knee or a different knee? Okay, so that's not as promising. In that case, I'd probably rather try to take a run at Jahmyr Gibbs, unless you want to try to buy the injury value dip on Achane, which is a possibility as well. So
that's a good one.
We're both lower on Saquon. I like Saquon, but got to be realistic here. So let's move on. Jahan Dotson. Now, Nate, his current value, his given cost, is a late 24 second. Are we accurate, higher, lower? What are you thinking? Looks like we differ here.
Oh, come on. I'm going to be higher on Jahan Dotson than a late second. That's a deal. If I can go get Jahan Dotson for a late second, I'm happy to do that. I know the splits are bad with Curtis Samuel in there. When Curtis Samuel's not there, Jahan Dotson, he's putting up the numbers that we were expecting him to put up. But when Curtis Samuel's in there, it's just not happening. Jahan Dotson's still playing 95% of the snaps, but he's just not getting the production that Curtis Samuel is. He's unfortunately almost like the wide receiver 3 in this situation. So that's not great. And it's because he's being used a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. He's not being used down the field a lot. His ADOT this year, average depth of target, is 10.3 yards down the field. Last year was 15.4. So, quite the jump down. Different way they're using him than they were last year. He was much more efficient last year. They're not using him that way. Curtis Samuel is a free agent after this year. Now, I know it sounds a little silly to be like, oh, but Jahan Dotson's going to be really good once Curtis Samuel leaves. That doesn't sound really promising. But, yeah, I mean, Curtis Samuel's a good NFL player, Mike, right?
Yeah, I am a Curtis Samuel fan, and he's a guy that I had said that you should buy cheaply because, look, you have to plug in guys in your lineup at some point, injuries, bye weeks. Guys just stink it up. That's how it happens. So, all right, Nate, you're higher. I think it's accurate, but I want to know from you, is there anybody else you'd rather acquire at this cost, or do you like this cost? Obviously, if you could get him for a late second, you're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get Jahan Dotson for late second. I'm willing to pay a mid-second for Jahan Dotson. Not an early second because I do like this upcoming wide receiver class.
Okay. I was gonna say,
Um,
what's your cutoff
yeah,
there?
yeah, I think an
All right.
early second, as much as I love Jahan Dotson, I'm not going to put my love for him above a smart decision, and
Okay.
I'm going to keep on holding on to an early second versus Dotson. But other guys with value around that, Deontay Johnson, I think is a good one. Talking about the change with Matt Canada, I
Yeah.
think Deontay Johnson is a good buy low right now for about the similar price.
I will say that this might be the cheapest you can acquire Jahan Dotson for some time. If
Yeah,
Curtis Samuel does move on, if the offense continues to bloom, this could be a really good investment. That being said, I'm definitely thinking this is accurate. He's underperformed. He's been borderline unstartable. Like you look at
yeah,
his last two games, 3 for 23. He did get a touchdown, but then no catches. And then he had two really good games, 69 and a touchdown, 108 and a touchdown. But before that, it's just look at his it's just not good for Jahan Dotson. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll buy in. I think this is accurate right now just because we don't really know what's going to happen with that Washington offense. I don't think Jahan Dotson's ever going to be the one, in a team's offense, but he also doesn't have to be. So I'm definitely buying in. I think it's accurate right now, but it's definitely going to be higher soon enough. So, Nate, you and I are going to talk about Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice.
yeah.
His given cost is a mid 24 second and a 25 second. So we don't know where that is right now. Higher, lower, accurate. What do you think?
I'm a little bit lower than this cost. I
Okay.
understand. This is like the cost in between a second and a first. You don't want to pay a first. You don't want to pay a late first. So you say 2 seconds. I don't think Rashee Rice has gotten quite to that point yet. Looking at what he's done, he hasn't really broken out from a fantasy production standard. Yeah, he's gotten opportunities with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's always fun to be linked to Patrick Mahomes. But until he starts getting the funneled target volume, I'm not willing to buy in. You know, he hasn't had, he's only had 2 games with more than 5 targets. He doesn't get a ton of volume. He's got some touchdowns, and that's helped him out, but he's still only averaging 10.1 fantasy points per game. Like only 1 game above 15 points, and that was against the Chargers. So he's not really showing any upside at this point. So he's been consistent. I like what he's done. I like the progress he's shown, but he's wide receiver 42 in the season right now. One spot ahead of Drake London. And I'm not willing to pay 2 seconds for Rashee Rice. Are you willing to pay 2 seconds for Rashee Rice?
I'm not. I think there's a possibility that this could end up, you could pay that and maybe in a year or two look back and be like, I got a deal. It's always a possibility. He is technically the best wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs. But
Yeah.
when you look and you break it down, that's not saying much. We're taking Travis Kelce out of the mix. I'm just talking about wide receivers, not receivers overall. He has 36 receptions on the season, and the next highest is, you want to take a guess?
Is this Justin Watson? I mean, he's done some little things. Sky Moore, he's been consistently little.
Close. It's actually Kadarius Toney. He has 22 catches for 139 yards and one touchdown.
22 for 139.
Very Kadarius Toney like.
That's tough.
But look, Rashee Rice as a rookie, 36 for 420 and 4. That's what he's sitting at right now. Watching the game last night, I did like what I saw from him. He does have some flashes. I don't know what's going on with the Kansas City offense. I just feel like they do need to invest more in the wide receiver position. And that being said, if they do that and they bring in a bona fide stud, I don't know who that could be. If it's they draft somebody, if they bring in a free agent, then it's wheels up for Rashee Rice. He's another guy. I don't think he's a one in an offense. As a 1B, I think he
Yeah.
would really flourish there, kind of like a Devonta Smith style role. But that being said, I'm okay with the solo second on this. He's also a good like tear down type guy.
Hmm.
I also have a really hard time trusting Kansas City wide receivers. We've been burned time and time again. Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Harbin, Kadarius Toney. These are all guys that get hyped up. They get the Kansas City bump. I don't mind taking a risk on an unknown here, despite his draft capital. I just want it to be at a cost as cost effective as possible. So I'll
Yeah.
sell for 2 seconds. I'll buy for a single.
Yeah. I'll pay an early second for Rashee Rice.
That's
That's
fair.
I think I might like a wide receiver at the top of the second next year, but Rashee Rice is producing now. He's going to have a good rookie season. He's linked to Mahomes. So, talent wise, I might like the guy in the second round next year, but I'm paying up Have no problem paying an early second for a guy that's linked to Mahomes who's already producing. I'm willing to pay a second and a third if I want to. Not a big deal there, but 2 seconds, just not willing to invest that much in Rashee Rice. If I'm going to do that, maybe Jaden Reed is a guy I like a lot who's also breaking out.
I would pay that.
Another guy
Yeah.
I probably value around a second and a third, probably similar value.
I don't think you get Jaden Reed for 2 seconds right now. I think you gotta at least get one first in there. But I do wanna ask you, you said that you would pay an early second for Rashee Rice, but you wouldn't pay an early second for Jahan Dotson. So are you saying you prefer Rashee Rice, or is it just his situation that you think would be better long term? Which do you think it is?
I think Jahan Dotson is more valuable than an early second in the future.
Okay.
But at this point, I'm not willing to risk an early second for
Okay.
Jahan Dotson, who's not been producing recently. So I can only go so much off of my emotional love for Jahan Dotson in the past history. I got to go off what have you done for me lately. I gotta make sure I'm not risking too much.
Let's talk about one of the best running backs in fantasy football right now. That is Washington Commanders running back Brian Robinson. Nate, who knew he'd be the best BROB at running back in the NFL this year? So his given cost right now is a late 24 first and a 25 third. Nate, higher, lower, accurate? Please tell me what it is.
This is accurate to me. I'm more than happy to pay a late first and a 25 third. That seems like a pretty good deal to get into Brian Robinson, who has somehow become the better B Robinson this year for fantasy. I saw a tweet today, Mike, a stat that really kind of blew my mind here. Brian Robinson is the only running back so far this year to finish the week as the RB1 twice. No one else has done it twice so
You
far.
want to know what's interesting about that?
What?
He has not had a single 100-yard rushing game this season.
No, he's been a threat in the receiving game.
Whatever works. I don't care if it's running, if it's receiving, however he gets the points.
But not even CMC has done that. Now, CMC has had top five finishes so far this year, and he's never finished below RB15. So he is the guy. But Brian Robinson, we always talk about Brian Robinson as a consistent player, maybe lacking upside, but he's shown that upside this year. He's shown that upside. He gets the volume. He's RB4 in the season, 3 games over 20 points. He's been an top 36 running back every single week so far this year, so he's been consistent. He has a good floor. Brian Robinson is what you want in a running back right now for your fantasy team, and you can get him for a single first and a throw-in third. That's pretty good. That's hard to come by these days. Antonio Gibson, as much as I liked him coming into the season, he's not a threat. He does take away some of the receiving work when he's in the game, but this is Brian Robinson's backfield. We are seeing that for sure.
I mean, look at his splits on the year. 138 carries, 558 yards, 5 touchdowns, 27 receptions, 314 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not bad for a guy who's not heralded as a receiving back coming out of Alabama. And remember, he sucked because he came back for that extra year. He's a senior. He was old. He was slow, whatever. Currently, the running back for 14.7 fantasy points per game, Nate. I think as Washington's offense gets better, he gets better as well. I will buy at this price. For this price right now, with how consistent he's been, should have bought in the offseason when he was cheap. Let's move on. Nate, you just lost Mark Andrews. You want to go after Travis Kelce, the second most talented football player in his family. The given cost for him is a late 24 first, a 25 second, and a 25 third. And yes, I will say that every chance I get. What do you think? Higher, lower, accurate?
I think it's accurate. It's what you got to pay to get Travis Kelce. I'm never a fan of losing 2 assets in a trade. So I would want, a third back, 25 third, something like that. Give me something back, maybe even a fourth. Just give me something. I don't like to go 3-1. I don't, because Dynasty's about hoarding assets when you can, hoarding those mid-round draft picks, because then you can jump around the board later. So I don't want to go 3-1, but I think this is the price, and this is accurate. I'm willing to pay this, especially if you're a competitive team that just lost Andrews and the rest of your team is ready to go. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do to get the championship. And he's the tight end 1 until he retires, basically. I don't think Travis Kelce fade away. We've seen other tight ends like Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez. Those guys were productive until the day they retired. Travis Kelce is going to do the same thing. I don't know if it's the end of this year. I don't think so. I think he's got another year or two. Maybe he has more than that, but I mean, you're paying this much. You're getting a top tight end for at least another year, I think we can say at this point. So I'm all about it. And I am buying. Well, I have bought Travis Kelce recently, Mike.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I actually made a trade for Kelce. I had a team that was looking pretty good, and I just needed a tight end. So I decided to, make the jump. And I traded for Travis Kelce. I needed a bunch of running back depth too. So I also got Devin Singletary and Ramondre Stevenson.
I love that.
Okay. So a nice package here. I traded away a mid 2024 first, a mid 2024 second, Chig, and Sean Tucker. It's a great deal for my competitive team. And you know what? I have another first. That's not my original first. I have my original first still.
Yeah, I love that.
So
I love that trade for you. This is what you do to try to bring it home. Love the Devin Singletary grab too. He's
been productive.
Yeah, and this could be the end for Dameon Pierce. Honestly, he's been
Yeah.
hurt, and I know you're not supposed to lose your job in the NFL to injury, but the fact of the matter
Happens all the time.
Devin Singletary looks really good, man. How do you keep this guy off the field right now?
Yep.
I don't think you can. I do think that this is accurate as well. He's the best receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs. Tight end, wide receiver. He's the best receiver. I don't know of any other tight end right now that has a ceiling as high as Travis Kelce's. I mean, we could have said Mark Andrews, but obviously he's out of the picture for the rest of the year. We all like Florida. Hawkinson, yeah, but
he gets the volume like crazy. But now that Kirk's out,
that's what I'm saying. Again, we like Laporta. There's a lot of other young guys that we like too, but even like a healthy Dallas Goedert doesn't have a ceiling like Travis Kelce does. There's more competition for targets there. This is what you pay to get a premium player on your team. And the other thing is, if you don't have the capital to pull this off, because you just might not, you could try for a guy like Dalton Schultz, or you could scrape the bottom of the barrel a little bit more. Jake Ferguson, he's been a little inconsistent, but he's kind of the de facto number 2 in Dallas. Pretty much it's CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and then a big question mark. So my question for you, Nate, how do you acquire Dalton Kincaid? What do you want to do? Dalton Kincaid has really been firing on all cylinders lately. What you want to get him on your team? You were not able to draft him, but you're not taking no for an answer here. He needs to be on your roster. How are you getting him?
Yeah, I mean, Dalton Kincaid right now is the tight end 8, and he had a slow start to the season. Remember everyone freaking out. Oh, I picked the wrong tight end because I picked Dalton Kincaid instead of Sam Laporta. You got lucky either way. You got a good player. So Dalton Kincaid, he's been great. I'm willing to pay a 24 first and a 25 second. I'm kind of thinking there that I'm probably a contending team, so I'm expecting those to be late picks. Willing to do that for Dalton Kincaid. Goddard in a 24 second. I think that's a nice little tier up move. It almost might be a lateral move for some people, and they see it as getting a second on top, but you're getting younger, getting better, I think, with more upside. And then a guy that we also like around here, another rookie tight end, Luke Musgrave. I think Luke Musgrave and a 25 first can get you Dalton Kincaid. You might be able to get the ball rolling with Luke Musgrave a second, and maybe you have just a throw-in player. You don't have to get rid of that first, when you're tearing down. But I'm willing to pay up to Luke Musgrave and a first for Dalton Kincaid right now. I think Dalton Kincaid is a stud. He's linked to Josh Allen. He's been productive already. Like I said, tight end 8 already on the season. He's already got 50 plus receptions. So this is a guy that we're going to be talking about for a long time in the tight end position. This whole tight end landscape just got a huge influx of talent. I want some of the top guys at the bottom of the age pool, not the bottom of the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Unless you consider younger the top of the age pool.
Oh, maybe. Cream of the crop.
Yeah, there you go. Look, you need at least the 24 first. That's probably going to be where you're starting at. Might need a second as well. He's also a guy that, because we all know when we try to preach against it, but a lot of people chase names, right? Kincaid's been really consistent. If you're not competing and you want Kincaid, you could use him as a tier down from a Travis Kelce, from a George Kittle. Try to get him and some draft capital on top of it. I don't know how much more you're going to be able to get. If you could pull a second, swing that, great. If it's a third, I'm still okay with that too. If you're rebuilding, get some fab in there, $3 a fab. Don't hate. By the way, free trials of Patreon right now, 7-day trial.
Yeah.
Head up to Patreon so you can tell me when you trade with fab. I love when people tag me, like, look at the fab I got in this trade. It makes me really happy. It does make my day. I'll buy in at that price too. Look, you want a guy who you think is going to be an elite top end tight end for a couple of years, maybe 5 to 10 years, depending. You see these guys have longevity. I'll buy in on that. Not that I'm saying I'd rather have this player than Kincaid. I think now's a really good buy low window on a guy like Pat Freiermuth as well. Coming off an injury, getting a new offensive coordinator. He's just had a terrible season. I mean, so far in the year, we're talking 9 catches for 60 yards, somehow still has 2 touchdowns, but he's back. He's healthy enough to play anyway. New offensive coordinator. Why don't you shake the tree on some Pat Freiermuth a little bit? See how cheap you can get him and let me know.
I like Pat.
I'm curious about
No, I
that.
love me some Pat.
Do you think right now you could get Pat Freiermuth for like a second?
Yeah, absolutely.